they control Washington. They control the House, the Senate, the White House. They control the committees. They control the agencies. It's their plan, but they have no plan to fix all the problems they created. We've created a commitment to America. We want an economy that is strong. It means you can fill up your tank. You can buy the groceries. You have enough money left over to go to Disneyland and save for a future. That the paychecks grow, they no longer shrink. We have a plan for a nation that's safe. We believe in a future that's built on freedom. That your children come first. And we believe in a check and balance. That government should be accountable.
Welcome to another edition of Wake Up America, Wake Up. Tonight's podcast will discuss the commitment to America, which was laid out publicly by Minority House Representative Leader Kevin McCarthy. Now, why is this important? Well, because back on September 27th, 1994, Newt Gingrich publicly announced a Republican Party contract with America.
We're here because we are taking the first steps, and we're taking them in a contract with the American people.
What did that mean back then, and what does that mean now?
With a positive contract, with positive ideas, with 8 reform steps on the opening day, and with 10 bills.
The contract with America was a legislative agenda advocated for by the Republican Party during the 1994 congressional election. It was written by Newt Gingrich and Dick Armey, in part using text from former President Ronald Reagan's 1985 State of the Union address. The contract detailed the actions the Republicans promised to take if they became the majority party in the United States House of Representatives, which would have been the first in 40 years. With that said, the contract with America was introduced 6 weeks before the 1994 congressional elections, the first midterm election of President Bill Clinton's administration, and was signed by all but 2 of the Republican members of the House and all of the party's non-incumbent Republican congressional candidates. The contract described the plan of the congressional representatives seeking to nationalize the congressional election. Doesn't that sound very similar? Isn't it true that history has a funny way of repeating itself? Well, it's happening again now, except it is called the Commitment to America, version 2.0 for 2022. Its provisions represented the view of many conservative Republicans on the issues of reducing the size of government, cutting taxes, both tort reform and welfare reform. Now, you may not have heard that in Kevin McCarthy's speech given not too long ago. However, the plan is basically to motivate Republican conservatives such as myself, and I need you to really size up whether or not this commitment to America is either going to pan out or is going to be a washout. But we won't know that until, the House and the Senate are occupied by a majority of Republicans. What ended up happening was the 1994 elections resulted in Republicans gaining 54 House and 9 U.S. Senate seats, flipping both chambers. Hey, a first in over 40 years, right? So now, let's talk about, in detail, about the contract with America, 1994, version 1. The contract with America 1994 would address government and operational reforms. On the first day of their majority in the House, the Republicans promised to bring up for vote 8 major reforms. The first requiring all laws that apply to the rest of the country also apply to Congress. And that's something that we need now, because obviously Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Maxine Waters, they definitely operate on a different scale. So they make rules for us, right? Rules for thee, but not for me. Okay. Second, select a major independent auditing firm to conduct a comprehensive audit of Congress for waste, fraud, and abuse. 3, cut the number of House committees and cut committee staff by 1/3. 4, limit the terms of all committee chairs. 5, ban the casting of proxy votes in committee. 6, require committee meetings to be open to the public. Now, that would be a first. Every single committee hearing to be televised, to be made public, is very important, because nowadays the public has been kept in the dark about a lot of things. 7, require 3/5 majority vote to pass a tax increase. 8, guarantee an honest accounting of the federal budget by implementing zero baseline budgeting. So what were the effects? Some observers cite the contract with America as having helped secure a decisive victory for the Republicans in the 1994 elections. Whatever the role of the contract, Republicans were elected to a majority of both houses of Congress for the first time since 1953. And some parts of the contract were enacted. Some parts. Most elements did not pass in Congress, while others were vetoed by or substantially altered in negotiations with President Bill Clinton, who sarcastically refers to it as a contract on America, implying that the Republicans' legislative policy on the new congressional majority, the contract placed Congress firmly back in the driver's seat of domestic government policy for most of the 104th Congress, and placed the Clinton White House firmly on the defensive. Not all contract objectives were achieved, including congressional term limits and a constitutional amendment to force balanced budget. But those that did were outstandingly successful. President Bill Clinton correctly gauged the mood of the country, declaring that the era of big government is over, if only. The Clinton-Gingrich welfare reform bill was a major achievement of the contract. The left claimed poor people would starve. They didn't. Under Bill Clinton, there was no longer a deficit, but there was a surplus, which was in favor of his presidency. However, taxes were cut, and in 1998, the federal budget was balanced and stayed balanced through 2001. The country experienced a surplus of $236 billion in the year 2000. Economic growth was 4% or higher from 1997 through 2000, and unemployment rates, which had been above 7% at the beginning of the decade, fell to less than 5% in 1997. By the end of 2000, unemployment was under 4%. For 3 straight years, from 1997 through 1999, the economy produced more than 3 million jobs, a record. And it is undeniable that the contract worked. Here is my problem with all of this. Both Republican parties during the 1994 and 2022 are required by the Constitution to protect and serve the people of the United States. There's no compromise. So when I think about the Republicans committing to a contract or to a commitment, I think of this critically because during the Biden administration, we've seen Republicans like Liz Cheney Republican from Wyoming. Peter Major, Republican from Michigan. Jamie Herrera Butler, Republican from D.C. Adam Kinzinger, Republican from Illinois. Anthony Gonzalez, Republican from Ohio. Dan Newhouse, Republican from D.C. David Valdao, Republican, California. John Kotko, Republican from New York. Fred Upton, Republican from Michigan. And Tom Rice, Republican from South Carolina, all voting to impeach former President Donald J. Trump. So that, in a nutshell, tells me that we have RINOs, which are Republicans in name only, who are hardliners or hard leftists like the Democratic Party. And to me, they didn't have their constituents or their country in mind when they were making those, or when they were casting those votes for impeachment. Under former President Donald J. Trump, we were doing good. Unemployment was low. And although the introduction of COVID-19 really hurt his administration, although he's not the root cause of it, and he tried his very best to implement a plan that did not require locking down our children, keeping them from going to school, or locking us down, keeping us from being with our family, you have to admit that we were oil independent, that the gas prices that you're seeing now did not exist during his presidency. Although the Biden administration will argue that a lot of the problems that we're seeing now are because of the former president, which is a total lie. But hey, you have a Biden administration that is filled with ass clowns trying to convince the public, and you have the media or the fake news also trying to convince the public. I don't take the media, the government, or the current administration's word for anything. Okay? I do the research myself, and I try to produce it and present it to you as a good argument so that you can think for yourselves. So again, it leaves a bitter taste in my mouth when Republicans rally behind a contract or a commitment that has no meaning unless they're committing themselves to support the Constitution, which they have sworn to uphold. So if you're telling me that this commitment to America is going to help Americans, then I say, I don't believe it, okay? And again, I'm a Republican conservative. However, if you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, to serve the people, then you don't need a contract or a commitment. It is your job. It's your job to do this. So again, to me, the commitment to America is more for a show, even if the last contract had some success. But it may just be a distraction to vote for the Republicans, many who are probably RINOs. And this is my biggest concern. Because all it takes is a couple of RINOs to say or vote against something that would benefit the public, that would benefit this nation, that would open up the Keystone Pipeline so that gas prices could go down, so that we can be energy and oil independent again. This is why we need to look at which Republicans have demonstrated support for we the people and the Constitution. This is my litmus test. What will yours be?